Get it, one playoff one. He's that new Rockney. Dog.
Well,
I
see,
just don't get it. New Rockney?
there are a lot of Giants
Somebody.
fans
Bill Walsh, somebody.
who would be interested in him.
Yep.
Look, the Browns haven't gotten it right at quarterback in a very long time in a variety of
I know he ain't hiring me.
different.
Breaking. One sentence. One live TV moment. And suddenly the entire NFL timeline is on fire. If you thought sports debates were just opinions and hot takes, think again, because this one crossed a line and the internet watched it happen in real time. This is Spill News, where smiles crack, egos slip, and secrets explode before your eyes. It started with a joke that wasn't really a joke, a firing that wasn't just a firing, and a former coach who thought the mic was his playground. But what happens when the wrong name gets mocked and the wrong person hears it? What happens when a rising star decides he's done playing polite? The internet couldn't believe it, and you won't either. Screenshots flying, group chats lighting up, fans picking sides like it's a street fight, not a sports show. One clip, one response, and suddenly everyone's asking the same question. Did he go too far? Or did he finally say what everyone else was scared to? Because if you were in that position, same disrespect, same public humiliation, same cameras rolling, what would you do? Stay quiet or cook somebody on the spot? Bro said too much and they got him. Let's break it all down. Slowly, carefully, because trust me, it gets uglier. It didn't start with shouting. It didn't start with anger. It started with a tone, that calm, confident, almost playful tone people use when they think they're untouchable, when they think the moment belongs to them, when they think the person they're talking about isn't watching. Live television has a funny way of doing that.
And that's what I mean.
They will, Jamar.
If you make NFL history, trust me, they will. And on the sideline, I'd be like, man, that's one hell of a player. Like, what an accomplishment for this guy. And guess what? You're fighting for your lives. Your life's been over for the last 10 weeks. Worry about your defense. I mean, come on. And I like Zach Taylor, but give me an absolute break. This is part of NFL history. We've seen him stop games for Walter Payton when he broke the rushing.
It turns opinions into permanent receipts. And on this night, one sentence quietly slipped out that would trigger a chain reaction nobody saw coming. The topic was simple: a coaching firing. Another name added to the long list of NFL exits that fans argue about for weeks and then forget. But this time, the conversation didn't stay professional. It drifted. It got personal. And according to many watching at home, it crossed into something that felt less like analysis and more like humiliation. The former coach on the panel leaned back, shook his head, and smirked. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't slam the desk. He did something worse. He laughed, and then came the comparison. A quick one, casual, almost dismissive. A line about playoff wins. A line about legacy. A line that, according to online reactions, sounded like it was meant to sting on purpose, not just critique the decision, but question the worth of the man who just lost his job. Social media didn't react instantly. At first, there was confusion. Clips started circulating. Short ones, cropped ones. Fans replaying it again and again, trying to decide if it was really as disrespectful as it sounded. Then the captions changed. Did he really say that? That was cold. Nah, that was personal. And slowly, the tone shifted. Because here's the thing people forget. When you talk on live TV, you're not just talking to fans. You're talking to players. You're talking to locker rooms. You're talking to families.
For Walter Payton when he broke the rushing record,
Emmitt
Smith, any of them, any major milestone like this, and God forbid you recognize a feat we've never seen in NFL history. Myles Garrett, he deserved his moment. Get over yourself, Cincinnati.
They're 6-11. I mean,
they're fighting for our lives.
You're talking to people who take notes. And somewhere else, far from that studio, someone was watching very closely. A young quarterback, a name already buzzing in NFL circles. A player used to being talked about, doubted, analyzed, and dissected before he's even taken a professional snap. Someone who's grown up watching how media narratives are built, and how quickly respect can be taken away. According to multiple fan accounts and online speculation, he didn't react immediately. No instant tweet, no emotional rant, no subtweet, just silence. And sometimes, silence is the loudest part. Behind the scenes, at least according to rumors circulating in fan forums, group chats started lighting up. Former players texting each other, college teammates reacting, analysts sending messages that began with, "Did you see that?" and ended with emojis. Because while the panel discussion kept moving, the clip didn't. It stayed alive online, gathering context, reactions, and opinions like gasoline soaking into concrete. What made it worse was the timing. The firing was still fresh, the emotions raw, and to many viewers, it felt like kicking someone while they were already on the ground. That's when the narrative started shifting. It stopped being about coaching philosophy. It stopped being about stats. It became about respect. And that's a dangerous word in sports. Respect is currency. Lose it, and everything else starts slipping. Fans dug up old interviews, old quotes, old seasons, old records. Suddenly, the man doing the mocking was being analyzed just as hard as the man being mocked. Screenshots of past seasons resurfaced, win-loss records, old headlines, memes that blurred humor with accusation. Funny coming from him. Talks loud for someone who hasn't been back on the sideline in years. Media tough guy. None of this was said on television, but it was said everywhere else. And still, the quarterback stayed quiet. That silence, it drove people crazy because everyone knew what was coming. They just didn't know how it would come. Would it be respectful? Would it be sarcastic? Would it be subtle or surgical? People started speculating. Some fans claimed he was being advised to stay out of it. Others believed he was waiting for the perfect moment. A few even suggested he'd already typed something out and deleted it multiple times. And then, according to internet timelines, it happened. Not loud, not long, not dramatic, just a few words. But those words landed like a match in a room full of fumes. The post didn't scream. It didn't insult directly. It didn't curse. That's what made it dangerous. It questioned credibility. It questioned authority. And most importantly, it questioned why certain voices still get treated like gospel. Within minutes, the reactions exploded. Sports blogs rushed to frame it as clapback. Commentators called it bold. Critics labeled it disrespectful. Supporters called it long overdue. And just like that, the story wasn't about a firing anymore. It was about generations. Old guard versus new blood. Studio voices versus locker room reality. Talk versus action. And the quarterback? He didn't add anything else. No follow-up. No explanation. No apology. He let the silence do the rest. That's when fans started digging deeper. Because when something feels personal, people look for the backstory. Old clips of interviews where analysts warned young players to know their place. Past moments where confidence was labeled arrogance, where ambition was treated like entitlement. Patterns started forming, or at least people thought they did. Was this really about one comment? Or was it about years of hearing young players told to wait their turn? Was it frustration boiling over or strategy? Online, the debates got uglier. Some accused the quarterback of overstepping. Others accused the analyst of hiding behind a desk because the field was no longer an option. And in the middle of it all, the original subject, the fired coach, almost disappeared from the conversation entirely, which is ironic because this all started with his name. By the end of the night, hashtags were trending. Reaction videos popped up. Former players weighed in with carefully worded statements that said everything without saying much at all. One former linebacker reportedly commented, "Y'all forget these kids grew up watching everything." Another wrote, "Respect goes both ways." And that's when the story took a turn nobody expected. Because as the internet argued over words, something else happened quietly in the background. Something that added another layer of tension, another angle, another potential explosion waiting to happen. A record, a game, a moment that should have been pure celebration. But somehow, even that became controversial. And as attention began shifting from the studio to the field, from comments to consequences, one thing became clear. This wasn't over. Not even close. Because what came next, even his enemies didn't expect. The internet has a short memory, but it has a dangerous habit of connecting dots that were never meant to touch. And once the quarterback's response went viral, everything around it started getting re-examined under a microscope. Old takes, old clips, old grudges, things that were once ignored suddenly felt relevant again. Sports blogs rushed to publish timelines. Reaction channels popped up overnight. Titles screamed words like exposed, cooked, humiliated, and while some of it was clearly exaggerated for clicks, the energy behind it was real, because now it wasn't just fans talking. Former players started chiming in, not directly, not aggressively, but with that tone people use when they want to say something without getting dragged into it. Subtle posts, emoji reactions, interesting captions that spoke louder than paragraphs ever could. One anonymous source, claiming to be close to a locker room insider, told a fan blog that the live TV comments didn't sit right with a lot of people who've actually been in those meetings. Was it verified? No. But did it spread? Instantly. Then came the screenshots. Supposed leaked group chat messages began circulating. Unverified, blurry, but convincing enough for people who already wanted to believe. One message allegedly read, "Funny how everyone's brave when they're holding a mic, not a playbook." Another simply said, "Receipts always exist." And that's when the tone shifted from debate to scandal. Because now people weren't just reacting, they were digging. Old interviews resurfaced where analysts warned young players about knowing their role. Clips where confidence was framed as arrogance, where outspoken quarterbacks were told to let their play do the talking, while veterans were praised for telling it like it is. Suddenly, this wasn't about one comment anymore. It was about hypocrisy. Fans started asking uncomfortable questions. Why is it acceptable for analysts to publicly clown coaches who just lost their jobs, but players get labeled emotional or immature for responding? Why does experience excuse disrespect? And who really benefits from these narratives? Then, out of nowhere, another layer dropped. A clip from a completely different broadcast started trending, a moment that had nothing to do with the original argument, until it suddenly did. A historic on-field achievement, a record broken, a game paused. What should have been a pure celebration turned into controversy. Opposing players looked annoyed. Coaches appeared irritated. Post-game interviews sounded tense. And just like that, the conversation expanded again. Respect, recognition, ego. Sound familiar? Fans notice the pattern immediately. When greatness is acknowledged, someone always complains. When history is made, someone feels disrespected. And when emotions run high, people start revealing exactly who they are. Sports talk shows jumped on it the next morning. Panelists debated whether the pause was necessary, whether it was fair, whether it hurt competitive integrity. But online, the verdict was ruthless. Stop crying. History deserves respect. You mad because you can stop him? And buried in all that noise was a subtle but powerful connection people kept making. The same voices who were quick to dismiss a coach's career were now complaining about honoring a player's achievement. The hypocrisy narrative grew louder. Memes flooded timelines. Side-by-side screenshots. Old quotes contrasted with new outrage. Fans doing what fans do best, building a case, whether it was fair or not. Meanwhile, the quarterback stayed silent again. No follow-up posts. No victory lap. No, I told you so. And somehow that made it worse, because silence once again felt intentional. Behind the scenes, at least according to speculation, PR teams were scrambling, producers allegedly discussing whether things had gone too far, executives reportedly unhappy with how personal the conversation had become. Was any of that confirmed? No, but it felt believable enough to fuel the fire. Then came the so-called leak. A screenshot of what looked like a private message exchange began circulating on X and Instagram. The message, allegedly sent from someone close to the situation, read, "He's been holding that in for a minute. This wasn't random." Real? Fake? Edited? Nobody knew, but it didn't matter, because the narrative had already taken shape. This wasn't a spontaneous clapback. This was framed as a moment years in the making. A younger generation tired of being talked down to, tired of being told to wait, tired of being respectful while others weren't. Reaction videos dissected every word, every comma, every pause. Body language experts breaking down studio footage like it was a courtroom tape. See how he smirks here? Notice the tone change when he says, playoff win. It became absurd and addictive. Even celebrities outside of sports chimed in. Rappers tweeting support, actors liking posts, influencers turning it into motivational content. The line between sports analysis and pop culture drama completely disappeared. Then, a rumor surfaced that pushed things into uncomfortable territory. According to a tabloid-style blog, there were internal discussions about whether certain analysts should tone it down after backlash from players and fans. No names, no sources, just enough vagueness to sound plausible. Was it real? Probably not, but it spread like wildfire. And suddenly, people weren't just debating opinions anymore. They were speculating about consequences. Could this change how analysts talk? Could this impact future coverage? Was this the beginning of players pushing back publicly? The conversation fractured into camps. One side argued that media figures should be held accountable just like players, that if you can dish it out, you should take it. The other side insisted that players should stay in their lane and focus on the game. And right in the middle sat the quarterback, young, confident, unmoved. The irony was impossible to ignore. The very people accusing him of being too loud wouldn't stop talking about him. Every mention made the clip bigger. Every criticism amplified his voice. And then, just when the outraged machine seemed ready to move on, another name entered the conversation. Quietly at first, then loudly, a figure connected to past controversies. Someone whose history added weight to the argument. Someone whose involvement made people go, oh, this just got deeper. And that's when it became clear. This wasn't just a moment. This wasn't just a tweet. This was a shift. Because what came next wasn't about winning arguments. It was about fallout. And once fallout starts, there's no controlling where it lands. Once fallout begins, it never moves in a straight line. It spreads sideways, quietly, into places nobody was watching at first. By the time the next news cycle rolled around, the original moment, the comment, the response, the so-called clapback, had already mutated into something bigger. People weren't arguing about what was said anymore. They were arguing about what it meant. And meaning is dangerous, because meaning invites motive. Fans began asking questions that went beyond sports. Why now? Why him? Why that tone? Why did this feel so personal? Suddenly, theories started stacking on top of each other like unstable bricks. One popular narrative claimed this was about power, about who gets to define success in the league. Another suggested it was about resentment, old careers looking at new confidence and mistaking it for disrespect. A darker corner of the internet even whispered about behind-the-scenes grudges that never made it to camera. None of it was confirmed. All of it was consumed. Sports radio turned it into morality debates. Is confidence earned or inherited? Should young players speak up or wait? When does criticism become humiliation? Each question framed like it was philosophical, when really it was emotional. And emotions don't fact-check. The analysts at the center of it all tried to laugh it off. Or at least, that's how it looked publicly. Jokes, deflections, a few sarcastic remarks on air. But viewers noticed something different. The tone had changed. Less playful, more defensive. People online swore they could hear it. That laugh sounds forced. He's backtracking. That hit a nerve. Were they projecting? Probably. But perception becomes reality when millions agree on it. Meanwhile, the quarterback went quiet again. No follow-ups, no media tour, no attempt to clarify his stance. And that silence became its own storyline. Was he advised to stop? Was he satisfied with the damage done? Or was he watching the chaos unfold? Exactly as planned? Speculation filled the gap. Some insider, self-proclaimed at least, claimed he'd made his point and didn't want to look obsessed. Others argued the silence was strategic. Let the internet do the work. Let people argue on your behalf. Let critics expose themselves. and expose themselves they did. Former players began sharing lessons on leadership that conveniently aligned with their own experiences. Some subtly supported the quarterback without naming him. Others took thinly veiled shots, warning young stars about burning bridges before you even crossed them. That's when the narrative split hard. One camp saw the quarterback as a future, confident, self-aware, unwilling to bow to outdated hierarchies. The other saw him as reckless, too comfortable challenging voices that still control narratives. And somewhere in between sat the uncomfortable truth. The league is changing. The media is scrambling to keep up. And nobody likes losing control. Then came the reports. Or rather, the reports. Blog posts citing sources close to the situation suggested meetings were happening behind closed doors. Producers allegedly discussing guidelines. Executives supposedly nervous about escalating player media tension. Again, no proof, no names, but the idea stuck because it felt plausible. This wasn't the first time players pushed back, but it was one of the first times a young, not yet pro quarterback did it so publicly and walked away unbothered. The confidence rattled people. It reminded them of something they couldn't control, and control is everything in this business. As days passed, attention slowly drifted. New games, new scandals, new distractions, but the effects lingered. You could hear it in conversations, see it in interviews, analysts choosing words more carefully, players speaking with less fear, tiny shifts, almost invisible, but real. The quarterback eventually spoke again, not about the incident, but about leadership, about accountability, about focusing on we instead of me. It sounded measured, polished, mature. Too mature, some critics said. PR move, damage control. He got told to clean it up. Or maybe he just understood the moment had passed. Because that's the thing about moments like this. They don't end with explosions. They fade. Quietly, leaving behind questions instead of answers. The analyst kept his job. The quarterback kept his momentum. The fired coach moved on, mostly forgotten by the discourse that once centered him. But the internet remembered. Clips still resurface. Comment sections still argue. Reaction videos still rack up views. Because unresolved tension is addictive. And the bigger picture never went away. Who gets to speak? Who gets protected? Who gets criticized? And who gets excused? In the end, nobody was canceled. Nobody was fired. Nobody issued an apology that satisfied everyone. But something shifted. A line was tested. And once a line is tested, it's never the same again. The quarterback didn't disappear. He didn't retreat. He didn't apologize for confidence. He moved forward, knowing full well that every word from now on would be watched even closer. The analyst didn't vanish either. He stayed on air, but the ease was gone. The invincibility cracked. Because once the audience sees you as human, authority becomes negotiable. And maybe that's the real story here. Not who cooked who, not who won the argument, not who had the better resume, but the fact that the script flipped, if only for a moment. A young voice spoke up, an old voice got questioned, and the audience realized they had more power than they thought. The internet moved on like it always does, but the tension stayed. And in this league, where respect, ego, and image collide every single week, that tension is never really gone. It just waits, waiting for the next clip, the next comment, the next moment someone forgets the cameras are always on. Because reputations don't collapse overnight. They crack, and once cracked, the damage is already done. So now that you've heard the whole story, the real question isn't who won the argument. The real question is what this moment actually means. Because this wasn't just a clapback. It wasn't just a hot take on wrong. It was a warning shot. A reminder that the power dynamic in sports media is shifting right in front of us. Players aren't just listening anymore. They're watching. They're remembering. And sometimes they're responding. Think about it. If you were in this position, young, confident, constantly judged before you've even been given a fair shot, would you have stayed quiet? Or would you have done the same thing? Would you have let a moment of public disrespect slide? Or would you have decided that enough was enough? And what about the other side? Do analysts and former coaches have the right to say whatever they want because they've been there before? Or should accountability apply to everyone once the cameras are rolling and the mic is live? Because one thing is clear, the internet has already picked sides. Some people are calling this the rise of a new generation that refuses to be talked down to. Others say it's a sign of entitlement and ego creeping in too early. And somewhere in the middle is the truth. Messy, uncomfortable, and impossible to ignore. Now I want to hear from you. Was Rex Ryan out of line? Or was he just keeping it real? Did Shedeur Sanders cross a line? Or did he finally say what others were afraid to? And do you think moments like this will change how players and media interact going forward?